Cool. Okay, team, we might crack on. Welcome to Councillor briefing for the afternoon of the 18th of February. In front of us here we have our long-term plan kind of roadmap. So happy to hand over to Michael and Rob to take us through this.
Thank you very much. Hopefully our presentation will be very brief. This is just an update for you of where we're going. You'll see in there quite a lot of the stuff that we're doing. You will see also an emphasis on what will be expected from councillors through this process, because there's quite a lot of engagement that the councillors will be having with their community as we build our way along this. This is one of many updates you will get on the process. We will do a very brief presentation and then happy to deal with any questions that might come from that. So I'll hand over to Rob.
Thank you. So just sort of going back, as part of your induction, you would have had a little bit of an introduction to our corporate plans and the long-term plan. So just as a bit of a recap, the long-term plan is something that we do every 3 years. It's required under the Local Government Act. And this presentation is about taking you through what we're planning to do to develop, consult, and then adopt the long-term plan over the next, just under 18 months. This is a really important document because it really sets your direction for Selwyn District Council going forward. And this is an opportunity for you to shape how you see things, not only during your triennium, but beyond as well. So it's an exciting piece of work to be involved in, and we're looking forward to take you on that journey. So just a little bit of a context in terms of how this fits with our other consultation that we're doing. There's other consultation going on, but the first bit, we want to engage with our community around those community outcomes. And I'll come back to those, but the community outcomes are really your sort of strategic directions for Selwyn District Council, how we actually support and enable the delivery of the community's vision going forward. And that's really going to be the first bit of work, but there is a big part of that. Consultation is not mandated, but it is good practice, and it's important to actually, and when we get to later on in developing the long-term plan, especially when we go out for consultation, audit do like to sort of see that there has been some degree of sort of, that's what the community, we're working towards what the community are wanting as well. The other thing is with this is there's other consultation going on, so we're trying to fit this in with other consultations, so we're not going out with multiple consultations at the same time, so that's a really important aspect. Just to put this in context with other plans that we're delivering and annual report, we've got the annual plan, which is in pink there, the second line down. That's in progress. You know about that. We've been doing a lot of work over the last few months on that. The long-term plan amendment, that's to do with the transfer of assets and things and liabilities to Selwyn Water, but it's actually tidying up our long-term plan to reflect that we're no longer going to be responsible for those levels of service. So there will be a separate briefing on that in the next month or so on that. So, but the main one is the long-term plan there, which is also happening and we're starting to kick off, and that's outlined in red. The other thing is that we're actually starting work next month on preparing for the annual report and working with audit to actually plan for that as well. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening concurrently at the moment, which is quite a challenge, but there's quite a bit of work there. This long-term plan is going to be slightly different from previous long-term plans. Some of the things I've got on here in terms of the context, yes, we're New Zealand's fastest growing district, but probably the key one is around government reforms. And we're also dealing with increasing weather events, as we've seen over the last few days. And more recently, there's been reports around the number of days that the country's been under states of emergency within certain districts. And we're hearing the message about ratepayers are facing pressures and wanting to keep those rate increases down. the government reforms is massive, and what makes it more challenging is that some of that legislation will be going through Parliament as we're developing the plan. So we will have to make some assumptions that some of this legislation is going to come into effect. As part of the long-term plan, audit will also be expecting us to consider what the implications are to this council, including things like financial sustainability and those other sort of longer-term aspects around our infrastructure, etc. So I think probably the key message here is that we may be asking you to think about how we deliver services and what services, and doing things in a different way than the way we possibly have been doing things in the past. So in a way, there's an opportunity with that, and I'd be looking forward to working with you on that. In terms of activities and milestones, the dark blue sort of outlines some of the sort of key areas of work that staff will be working with you on, but the green areas are where we'll be briefing. We are going to be having a number of briefings, workshops with yourselves as we develop this long-term plan. And there's going to be quite a bit of work involved with that. There will be some key sort of decisions that need to be made by yourselves around where setting those strategic directions, going out and engaging with the community on community outcomes, and setting those strategic directions so that we can then work on what our activity management plans in terms of what services we're delivering, what those levels of service are, our asset management plans, and then that's leading into sort of our budgets and capital program and how we're going to fund that. So there, probably a key aspect I'd like you to be prepared for is I'm aiming to have a draft long-term plan for your reading over the Christmas period. So those of you who thought that the prioritisation was sort of going to be a thing of the past and that was going to be it, I'm sorry. I'm just giving you a heads up. You will be asked to have a document to take away for your reading so that we can actually have your feedback in the early part so that we can consult with the community. Audit will need to audit the consultation document. And that's really important before we go out to the community. And that gives assurance to the community that what we're putting in there is clear, it's well understood, and is a fair reflection so that the community can provide good feedback on that. And then we're factoring that there will be sort of hearings and submissions. And at the last long-term plan, we had about 1,500 submissions. And we do use a range of tools to try and do some analysis with that, but that's a key part where the community have some real say in the document. So in terms of the next steps, over the next 5 months, 4.5 months, we're going to be focusing on giving you a bit of background around those sort of future Selwyn, spatial planning, our environmental scan. So that's really about the environment that we're working in terms of Selwyn, but also at a national context, and running some workshops on those community priorities. And there's some work being planned for doing that over the next few months. The key thing here is that we're looking to have you support going out to engage on those community outcomes, those directions, and looking to adopt that by the end of June, ideally, so that we can then start putting the plan together to actually deliver on those strategic directions. But I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Cool, thank you. I think that the corporate calendar is quite pertinent to look at actually the work plans that are taking place. I think my thing is that, you know, I look at the council activities and milestones, and, you know, to me, I see that the LTP is a chance to reset the way that we want to see for the next 3 years. And so, you know, that really needs to stay front of mind in this whole process, because when we look at drafting activity or when staff are drafting activity, draft asset management plans and levels of service, all of that stuff actually weighs into what the budget looks like. And, you know, I have a big expectation that this LTP is, I see it as a reset. And, you know, I've said before that I think we should really be starting with $0 budgets of what are actually the things that we need to deliver. And, you know, then we are looking at also what are the community outcomes, what are the things that people are wanting, because we can't necessarily deliver everything, as we've found out in the past years gone by. So, you know, that's just something that sits at the front of my mind when we're looking through this process. But happy to go for comments and questions. John?
Yes, I'd just like to make the point, speaking for myself, that in the briefings, I'd much rather receive the material and have the opportunity to read beforehand so that I can then look at any information I need, so that when the information is, you know, presented to the council fully, that there's less talk and more of an opportunity for discussion afterwards.
Thanks, John. Sophie?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to ask a bit of crystal ball gazing in the sense that, so last time we did an LTP, but like I think you were kind of alluding to it just then, Lydia. So 3 years ago, we knew that water reform was coming, but nobody knew quite what it was. So a lot of councils kind of hedged their bets and almost came out with 2 different versions of an LTP preparation because we didn't know which one we needed to go with. And at that point, there was actually an option for a lot of councils took where they didn't actually do an LTP in the year they were supposed to. They delayed it for a year, which causes a lot of complications, but it was a viable option because of the scale that that change was bringing. And I guess the question is, do we have any hints that this might be the sort of way that this LTP is going to turn out, that we might have government, like we know that the community wants us to do a reset. That part isn't really up for debate. We just don't know what scale of reset the government's also going to chuck at us. Yeah, over to you.
I think we just got to be pragmatic with and be able to pivot to what happens. I mean, this government will bring forward legislation. There will be a period where I'd say probably in August this year that the government will then move into a caretaker period, and any new government is probably not going to be fully established until the early part of next year. So we're probably going to have to make a pragmatic judgment call, or you're going to have to make a pragmatic judgment call towards the end of this year to move forward on that. And if things change, there's a change of government and that new government wants to do something else, we'll just have to pivot at that moment in time.
If I could add to that, if you step back from the process and the legislation and the reforms, I think the essence of a long-term plan can almost survive that, because you're basically engaging with your community. It's the best opportunity you have to engage with your community to realise their aspirations through the decisions that you make. That probably won't change. It might look different, it might have a different name, there might be different bits, but I think the real essence of it is the stuff we're going to focus on, so that we can use that essence to do whatever we need to do in terms of how that needs to be presented and worked in with other things. So I don't think that any of the work that we will do will be wasted if we focus on the things that are really important to these plans. Yep.
I think, yeah, you're right, Sophie, it is a bit of crystal ball glazing, but at the end of the day, we're still going to keep delivering for our community and we can't stop. And, you know, we've had some pretty clear signals on what is going to be core functions of council and what we're tasked with to deliver. And, you know, we need to do that alongside our community. And I think that's also the benefit of an annual plan as well, is that actually, you know, we've got a chance to pivot when we need to. And there might be big pivots needed depending on what legislation we are given. But, yeah, who knows? Is there any other questions, comments? No? Cool. Yeah, well, thanks, team. I think, yeah, just outlays the next steps, and it's good to get a heads up of the work program through until July 27. What our touch points are in that too. So thank you for that. Okay, councillors, that brings us to the end of public briefing today. So thank you for your input into that.